The private airstrip at Chicago Executive Airport shimmered in the crisp morning light, a concrete mirage under a vast Midwestern sky. Julian Croft consulted the platinum face of his Patek Philippe for the third time in as many minutes. At 34, he had forged Arrowverse Inc. from a fledgling startup into a titan of aerospace technology, a billion-dollar empire built on relentless innovation. Today's pitch in New York was poised to secure a government contract that would not just double its value, but redefine the future of global defense. The sharp click of his hand-crafted Italian loafers echoed on the tarmac as he strode toward his private Gulfstream G700, its sleek fuselage a testament to his success. The flight crew stood ready, a picture of professional deference. "Everything is prepared, Mr. Croft," his pilot, a seasoned veteran named Charles, announced with a confident smile. "We have clear skies all the way to LaGuardia." Julian offered a curt nod, his thoughts already 1,000 miles east, cycling through presentation slides and counter-arguments. He had poured the last 18 months of his life into this contract. There was no margin for error. "Mr. Croft, wait! Please, you can't!" The voice, high and thin, sliced through the low hum of distant jet engines. Julian pivoted, his brow furrowing in annoyance. A small girl, no older than 8, was sprinting across the expansive tarmac toward him. Her dark, coily pigtails, adorned with bright pink beads, danced with each frantic stride. A few yards behind her, a security officer jogged in clumsy pursuit, his face a mask of mortification. "Sir, my deepest apologies," the guard panted, finally catching up. "She'd just bolted from the service entrance. Julian held up a hand, silencing him. "It's all right." Something in the child's expression arrested his impatience. It wasn't mischief or youthful exuberance. It was pure, unadulterated terror, reflected in wide, intelligent brown eyes. She skidded to a halt before him, her small chest heaving as she fought for breath. "Please, sir," she gasped, her words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "Don't get on your airplane. The engine, somebody hurt it." Julian instinctively crouched, bringing himself to her level, softening his voice. "What's your name?" "Maya," she whispered, her gaze darting nervously toward the hangar. "Maya Washington? My mama. She cleans your office building at night. I go with her sometimes when I don't have school." He processed this, the image of the diligent overnight cleaning crew flashing through his mind. "And how do you know about my airplane, Maya?" Her small hands anxiously twisted the hem of her worn unicorn T-shirt. "I saw him. The man who works for Miss Claire. The big one, with the mark on his face?" She traced a line over her own eyebrow with a small finger. "He was here last night. He was hiding underneath the plane for a really long time." An icy current coursed through Julian's veins. Victor Stone, his fiancée Claire's personal bodyguard. The man was a former Special Forces operative, whose quiet intensity had always unsettled Julian. Claire, however, had been adamant about his presence, citing a sense of security he provided. Just then, a woman in a cleaner's uniform came rushing toward them, her face etched with panic. "Oh, Mr. Croft, I am so sorry." She ran off before I could even blink. "Mama, you have to tell him," Maya pleaded, tugging on her mother's arm. "Tell him what I told you at breakfast this morning." Sarah Washington's face went pale, the color draining away to reveal a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. "Maya, she woke up screaming this morning, Mr. Croft," she explained, her voice trembling slightly. "She had a nightmare. She said she saw your plane. She saw it falling out of the sky in pieces. She's been begging me to bring her here ever since the sun came up." The pilot, Charles, had walked over, his professional calm replaced by a look of deep concern. "Sir, is there a problem?" Julian rose slowly, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. Maya's earnest face showed no hint of a childish prank. There was only genuine, soul-deep fear. And Victor? Victor had been asking strange questions lately, subtly probing about Julian's will and the succession plan for Arrowverse should anything happen to him. It had seemed morbidly inappropriate at the time, but he had dismissed it as the bodyguard's overzealous risk assessment. "Call the mechanics," Julian commanded, his voice low and firm. "I want a full, comprehensive inspection of the starboard engine, right now." As Charles hurried to comply, Julian retrieved his smartphone. He dialed 911, his thumb hovering over the call button for a split second as the sheer absurdity of the situation struck him. He was about to ground his own multi-million-dollar aircraft and potentially derail a historic business deal based on the nightmare of a janitor's 8-year-old daughter. He pressed the button. 911, what is your emergency? "I need to report a possible sabotage attempt," Julian said, his voice steady despite the tremor of adrenaline. "Chicago Executive Airport, Hangar 7, a private Gulfstream G700. 40 minutes later, which felt like a lifetime, Julian stood in stunned silence as the lead mechanic approached. The man's face was grim, his expression a mixture of awe and horror. In his gloved hand, he held a small, sophisticated electronic device, wires dangling from its compact frame. "We found this clamped to the primary fuel line, sir," the mechanic said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's a remote-triggered incendiary, highly sophisticated. Once you reached cruising altitude and the pressure changed—" He didn't need to complete the sentence. The device would have ignited the fuel, turning the aircraft into a fireball. Julian's gaze shifted to Maya, who sat with her mother on a service bench near the hangar entrance. A security guard had draped a wool blanket over her small shoulders. Her prescient nightmare had been a literal warning. How could she possibly have known? His phone buzzed, shattering the silence. Claire's smiling face illuminated the screen, a photo from their trip to Lake Como. Beneath her contact name, a text message glowed. "Safe travels, my love. Can't wait to hear all about the deal. I love you." Julian stared at the message, the words blurring, as a fleet of police cars and federal vehicles streamed onto the airfield, their flashing red and blue lights painting streaks against the bright morning sun. Someone had made a very real attempt to murder him today. And, by some impossible twist of fate, a cleaning woman's daughter had just saved his life. The police station buzzed with the low hum of institutional activity. Detective Eva Rostova, a woman whose weary face seemed carved from granite, slid a cup of lukewarm coffee across the polished table toward Julian. Through the conference room's large window, the setting sun cast long, skeletal shadows across the employee parking lot. 12 hours had elapsed since Maya Washington's frantic warning. "So, to summarize," Detective Rostova stated, her tone flat and devoid of emotion, "you believe your fiancé's bodyguard, a Mr. Victor Stone, attempted to murder you. That's a serious allegation, Mr. Croft?" Julian stared into the murky depths of his coffee, the bitter aroma filling his senses. "The device your bomb squad is analyzing is real. They confirmed it." "Yes, it's very real," she conceded, "but linking it to Victor Stone is another matter entirely. We're pulling all security footage from the hangar and surrounding areas, but so far we have nothing conclusive. The saboteur was skilled at avoiding detection." The door creaked open, and a younger uniformed officer stepped inside. "Detective, we have Stone in custody. Airport security at O'Hare picked him up attempting to board a one-way flight to Cancun." A frigid wave washed over Julian. "Did he say anything?" "Not a word, sir," the officer replied. "Demanded a lawyer the moment he was detained." Detective Rostova let out a long, frustrated sigh. "Mr. Croft, has your fiancée Claire made any contact with you since this morning's incident?" Julian produced his phone, the screen a log of his day's chaos. He scrolled through dozens of missed calls and a cascade of increasingly desperate text messages from her. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering me?" "The news is saying something happened at the airport. Please, Julian, call me." "I'm worried sick. Just let me know you're alive." The final message had arrived about an hour ago. "Victor isn't answering his phone either. What is going on?" "She appears to be genuinely concerned," Julian said, the words feeling hollow and strange in his mouth. Or she's a very good actress, meticulously constructing a plausible alibi, Rostova countered, her cynical gaze unwavering. People have been known to put on quite a performance when billions of dollars are at stake. A soft knock on the conference room door interrupted their grim exchange. Sarah Washington stood in the doorway, her daughter Maya half hidden behind her legs, peeking out shyly. "I'm so sorry to intrude," Sarah said, her voice soft but clear. "But my daughter, she insisted on giving you something." Maya stepped forward, her small hands clutching a piece of paper that had been crumpled and smoothed out again. She carefully placed it on the table, pushing it toward Julian with a hesitant finger. "I drew it this morning," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible, "after my dream." Julian unfolded the paper. It was a child's drawing, rendered in crayon with surprising detail. A plane, its side erupting in bright orange and red flames, was plummeting through dark, angry clouds. But what was most unsettling was the figure on the ground. A stick person with long, flowing yellow hair, watching the disaster unfold. "Who is this?" Julian asked, his finger pointing to the blonde figure. "The lady," Maya said, her voice barely a breath. "The one who told the man to hurt your plane. I saw her in my dream. She was laughing." "Yes." Detective Rostova leaned forward, her professional skepticism momentarily forgotten. "And what did this lady look like, sweetheart?" Maya's large brown eyes met Julian's. "She looks like the pretty lady in the pictures on your desk, Mr. Croft." The room plunged into a profound silence, broken only by the distant hum of the building's ventilation. Julian felt his hands begin to tremble. On his phone, still resting on the table, a new text from Claire blinked onto the screen. "I'm coming to the station to find you. I love you so much." "Detective," Julian said, his voice quiet and strained, "I think you need to find Claire before she finds me." As Rostova hurried from the room, barking orders into her radio, Julian remained frozen, his gaze fixed on Maya's drawing. He noticed a detail he had missed at first. The stick figure, with the yellow hair, wore a small, meticulously drawn red heart around its neck. It was a perfect replica of the ruby necklace he had given Claire on their first anniversary. His entire world, so carefully constructed, was fracturing and crumbling around him. And somehow, this little girl had seen the cataclysm coming. "There is simply no logical explanation, Mr. Croft." Dr. Evelyn Reed, a renowned neurologist with a reputation for demystifying the brain's most complex puzzles, removed her gold-rimmed glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose with a weary sigh. 3 days had passed since the averted disaster, and Julian now sat in her sterile book-lined office on the Magnificent Mile, desperately seeking answers where none seemed to exist. "All the tests show nothing anomalous about Maya's brain activity," she continued. "Her fMRI, EEG, cognitive panels, they all indicate a bright, perfectly healthy 8-year-old child." "But she saw an event that hadn't occurred yet," Julian insisted, leaning forward in the plush leather chair. "She knew details, the bodyguard, the blonde woman, the necklace, that were impossible for anyone to know." Dr. Reed sighed, her expression a mixture of scientific frustration and human empathy. "The human mind remains the last great frontier. Throughout recorded history, we have accounts of seemingly inexplicable premonitions. The vast majority can eventually be attributed to subconscious pattern recognition, keen observation processed unconsciously, or simple, profound coincidence." "This was not a coincidence," Julian stated firmly, his voice edged with a conviction that surprised even himself. "She drew a picture of my fiancé, whom she had never seen, laughing as my plane fell from the sky." The doctor hesitated, her gaze drifting toward the window overlooking the bustling Chicago streets below. "Mr. Croft, what exactly are you hoping to find here? A scientific label for a miracle?" Julian leaned back, the tension in his shoulders palpable. "I want to understand how she knew, why her? Why was she the one chosen to deliver this warning to me?" Perhaps those are not questions that science is equipped to answer, Dr. Reed replied gently. Sometimes, in the face of the inexplicable, we must simply accept the mystery. Leaving the medical center, Julian found Sarah and Maya waiting for him on a bench in the building's serene, glass-enclosed atrium. Maya was engrossed in a worn copy of a library book about constellations, her small finger tracing the mythical shapes of Orion and Ursa Major. "Thank you for bringing her today," Julian said to Sarah, his voice filled with a gratitude that felt inadequate. "I hope this wasn't too much of a disruption for you both." Sarah shook her head, a tired but resilient smile gracing her lips. Maya wanted to come. She's been different since that morning. Quieter, more thoughtful, like she's carrying a weight. Julian knelt in front of Maya, his expensive suit creasing. "The doctor says you're in perfect health. A very special, very smart girl." Maya looked up from her book, her gaze direct and searching. "Did she tell you why I can see things sometimes?" "No," Julian admitted. She didn't have an answer for that. Maya nodded, as if this was the expected outcome. "Grandma Rose used to say some people just have gifts. She said she could feel a big rainstorm coming in her bones 3 days before it arrived." A genuine smile touched Julian's lips. "That's quite a talent to have." "Mine is scarier," Maya whispered, her eyes dropping back to the star charts in her book. "I don't like seeing the bad things before they happen." Something in her somber tone made the hairs on Julian's arms stand on end. "Maya, have you seen something else?" The little girl hesitated, glancing at her mother before giving an almost imperceptible nod. "Last night? But Mama says I shouldn't tell you. She says you have enough worries right now." Sarah sighed, placing a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Maya, please." "It's okay," Julian assured them both, his heart rate quickening. "Maya, whatever you saw, you can tell me. It's important." Maya carefully closed her book, her movements deliberate. "I saw the blonde lady again, in my dream. She was in a dark room surrounded by piles of papers. She was very angry, and she kept saying your name over and over again." "Was there anything else?" Julian asked, struggling to keep his voice steady and calm. "She was on the phone talking to someone," Maya recounted, her brow furrowed in concentration. She glanced at her mother again as if for permission. "She said they needed a new plan because the first one didn't work." Just then, Julian's phone vibrated in his pocket. An unknown number. He answered with a sense of foreboding. "Mr. Croft," Detective Rostova's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp and urgent. "We have a problem. Claire posted bail for Victor Stone an hour ago. We had them under surveillance. But they gave our team the slip. Both of them have disappeared." As Julian absorbed the chilling news, Maya gently touched his arm. "There was one more thing I saw, Mr. Croft," she said, her voice soft but insistent. "Numbers. I kept seeing numbers in my dream." "What numbers, Maya?" 78452, she recited, her expression intent, over and over. "Do those numbers mean anything to you?" Julian felt the blood drain from his face, a cold dread seeping into his bones. 78452. It was the 6-digit access code to the primary secure server at Arrowverse Inc., the digital vault where the proprietary schematics for all his most advanced technology were stored. "I have to go," he said abruptly, already dialing Kenji Tanaka, his head of security. As he turned to leave, Maya's voice called out to him. "Mr. Croft, in my dream you weren't by yourself. There was someone helping you, someone who had a bright light all around them." Julian paused, turning back. "Did you see who it was?" Maya shook her head. "No, but they were important, really, really important." Hurrying to his car, Julian couldn't shake the unnerving feeling that his life had irrevocably swerved into a realm beyond logic and reason. His meticulously ordered world of data and certainties had been shattered, and somehow this extraordinary child was his only guide through the wreckage. The headquarters of Arrowverse Inc., a gleaming skyscraper of steel and glass in the heart of Chicago's Loop. buzzed with an undercurrent of nervous energy. As Julian strode through the expansive marble lobby, employees fell silent, their hushed whispers and furtive glances following him to the executive elevator bank. The news of his near-death experience and the subsequent disappearance of his high-profile fiancée had become a voracious media storm. "The security team has found no evidence of a breach yet," reported Kenji Tanaka, his sharp-eyed chief of security, as they ascended in the private elevator. Kenji was a man of few words and immense capability, someone Julian trusted implicitly. "But if they possess your access code?" "They won't get far with just the code," Julian interrupted, his mind racing. "That's only the first layer of defense. They'll still need my biometric data to get past the quantum encryption firewall." The elevator doors opened onto the serene, minimalist expanse of the executive floor. Olivia Hayes, Julian's executive assistant of 8 years, was pacing anxiously in the corridor, her face pale with stress. "Thank God," she breathed, rushing toward him, her usual unflappable composure gone. "Julian, the board members have been calling nonstop. The investors for the New York contract are threatening to pull out, and the PR department is completely overwhelmed by media inquiries." "Schedule an emergency board meeting for this afternoon," Julian instructed, heading directly for his office. "And Olivia, not a single word to anyone about the access code situation. Understand?" Once alone, Julian sank into his ergonomic chair, the immense weight of the last few days pressing down on him. A framed engagement photo of him and Claire still sat on the corner of his desk. Her blonde hair caught the afternoon light, her radiant smile a cruel mockery of her hidden intentions. He picked up the frame and placed it face down in a drawer. His computer chimed, signaling an incoming video call from Dr. Marcus Cole, the brilliant head of Arrowverse's Research and Development Division. "Julian, we have a situation." Marcus's face appeared on the screen, his forehead deeply creased with worry. "Someone is actively attempting to access the quantum algorithms. They've bypassed the first-level clearance, but they're being blocked by the biometric firewall." "Location?" Julian asked, his pulse hammering against his ribs. "That's the strange part," Marcus replied. "The attempts aren't coming from an external network. They're originating from inside the building, from the sub-level server room." "Lock it down now," Julian commanded. "Nobody in or out." Within minutes, Julian and Kenji were racing toward the basement server room, flanked by a team of armed security personnel. The heavy reinforced door was slightly ajar. Inside, the air was cold, and the hum of the servers was the only sound. A single terminal was still active. "They're gone," Kenji muttered, his trained eyes sweeping the room, "but they left in a hurry." On the glowing screen, a familiar name was displayed in the access log: Claire. She had used the guest credentials Julian had set up for her months ago and never thought to revoke. The timestamp, however, showed the login had occurred just 5 minutes ago. It was impossible. Claire was a fugitive, on the run with Victor. Someone used her credentials from inside the building, Julian said, thinking aloud. But who? A soft clatter from behind a towering server rack broke the silence. Kenji instantly drew his sidearm as Julian moved cautiously toward the sound. Crouched in the shadows amidst a nest of glowing cables was a figure that made Julian's world tilt on its axis. "Olivia?" he breathed, staring in utter disbelief at his longtime executive assistant. Olivia Hayes slowly straightened up, her usual professional and deferential demeanor replaced by a look of cold, hard calculation. "Julian, this isn't what it looks like." "Really?" he shot back, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "Because it looks exactly like you're trying to steal proprietary company data using my fugitive fiancé's credentials." Olivia's own laugh was brittle and sharp. "Your fiancé? It was always about your fiancé, wasn't it? Did it ever once occur to you in your self-absorbed world that Claire might not have been working alone? That perhaps she was just the beautiful, charming face of a much larger, more sophisticated operation?" Julian's mind reeled, struggling to process the depth of the betrayal. "You've been working with her?" For how long? Almost 2 years, Olivia admitted, her eyes hardening with a resentment he had never seen before. Ever since you first perfected the quantum algorithms. Do you have any concept of what those algorithms are worth on the open international market? Billions, Julian. Enough for a person to disappear and live like royalty forever. So, the engagement, the wedding plans, it was all just a charade? The betrayal felt like a physical blow, stealing the air from his lungs. It was a wound far deeper than the one Claire had inflicted. Olivia had been his right hand, his confidant, the one person who knew the inner workings of his life and business better than anyone. Olivia shrugged, a gesture of casual indifference that was more painful than any confession. Claire played her role beautifully, didn't she? You were so captivated you never suspected a thing, and you never would have if it weren't for that strange little girl. Her expression darkened, a flicker of genuine confusion crossing her features. How did she know, Julian? We were so meticulous, so careful. Before Julian could formulate a response, Kenji stepped forward, a pair of handcuffs glinting in his hand. Ms. Hayes, you are being detained for corporate espionage and conspiracy to commit murder. As security led a now silent Olivia away, Julian's phone rang. It was Detective Rostova. Mr. Croft, we've triangulated Claire's cell signal. She's in a rented cabin in a remote area near Eagle River, Wisconsin. We're moving in now. Julian ended the call, a profound hollowness echoing inside him. 8 years Olivia had worked by his side. 2 years Claire had shared his life, his home, his bed. Both women had been methodically deceiving him, patiently waiting for the perfect opportunity to dismantle his life's work and, if necessary, end his life. And none of their elaborate conspiracy would have come to light without Maya Washington and her inexplicable, terrifying gift. A child had seen what he, with all his wealth, power, and resources, had been completely blind to. As he walked out of the cold server room, leaving the scene of the second great betrayal in his life, Julian made a decision. It was time he had a serious conversation with Sarah Washington about her daughter's future. Sarah Washington's apartment was in a faded brick building on the west side of Chicago, the kind of place where the elevators smelled of stale disinfectant and the hallway carpets held the faint ghosts of decades of footfalls. Dressed in his bespoke suit and carrying a fine leather portfolio, Julian felt glaringly out of place as he knocked on the door of apartment 3B. Sarah opened the door, her tired face flickering with surprise. "Mr. Croft, I wasn't expecting you." The apartment beyond was small but immaculately kept. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and freshly brewed coffee. School textbooks were neatly stacked on a small dining table that clearly served double duty as a study space. The walls were a vibrant gallery of Maya's artwork, landscapes, animals, and portraits rendered in the bold, joyful strokes of crayon and colored pencil. "I apologize for dropping by unannounced," Julian said, stepping inside as she held the door for him. "Is Maya here?" "She's at her after-school arts program. She won't be back until 5, Sarah replied, gesturing toward a worn but comfortable-looking sofa. "Please have a seat. Can I get you some coffee?" "Thank you. That would be very kind." As Sarah moved about the tiny, efficient kitchen, Julian's eyes were drawn to a small, makeshift shrine on a side table. A collection of candles surrounded a framed photograph of an older woman whose soulful, intelligent eyes were an exact echo of her granddaughter's. "My mother," Sarah explained, noticing his gaze as she returned with 2 steaming mugs. "Grandma Rose. She passed on last year. Maya was her shadow. They were incredibly close." Maya mentioned her, Julian recalled. She said her grandmother had gifts, too. Sarah sat in the armchair across from him, her posture guarded. "My mother was from a small town in rural Mississippi. The old folks there believed she had the sight, that she could know things before they happened. When I was a girl, I always thought it was just superstition, good intuition." She cradled the warm mug in her hands. Then Maya was born, and by the time she was 3, she was telling me about dreams she'd had that would then come true the next day. That must have been frightening for you as a mother. It still is. Sarah's eyes met his, direct and searching. Mr. Croft, if you don't mind me asking, why are you really here? Julian placed the leather portfolio on the small coffee table between them. I've been doing a great deal of thinking since everything happened. Your daughter saved my life, Mrs. Washington. There is no amount of money in the world that can ever truly repay that kind of debt. We don't want your money, Sarah said firmly, a line of pride straightening her back. I understand that, but I would like to ensure that Maya has every opportunity possible in her life. He opened the portfolio, revealing a set of professionally bound documents. I've taken the liberty of establishing an educational trust fund in her name. It's structured to cover all expenses through university and any postgraduate studies she may choose to pursue. It is completely independent of me and my company. Even if Arrowverse were to vanish tomorrow, this fund would remain secure and untouched. Sarah stared at the documents, her face an unreadable mask of conflicting emotions. There's more, Julian continued, his voice gentle. I am on the board of a building downtown that houses a very specialized school, the Meridian Academy for Gifted Youth. They have a unique curriculum focused on students with exceptional abilities, although typically in more conventional fields like mathematics or music. I believe Maya would flourish in that environment. A private school? Sarah shook her head, a skeptical frown forming. Mr. Croft, she wouldn't fit in. We are not from your world. The Academy offers full scholarships to extraordinary students, regardless of their financial background, Julian pressed. Maya would attend based on her own unique merit, not as an act of my charity. He leaned forward, his sincerity palpable. Mrs. Washington, your daughter possesses a truly extraordinary gift. I don't pretend to understand it, and perhaps science never will. But she deserves to be in a place that will nurture her abilities, not fear or dismiss them. Sarah was silent for a long moment, her gaze distant. Finally, she asked the question that had been hovering in the air. And what do you get out of this arrangement, Mr. Croft? The question caught him off guard with its directness. I don't understand. In my experience, she said, her voice steady, powerful men don't offer something for nothing. Are you hoping to study, my daughter, to use her abilities for your own purposes? No, Julian said, with unequivocal firmness. Absolutely not. This isn't about using Maya's gift. It's about honoring it, and honoring the incredible courage she showed when she came forward, when it would have been so much easier to stay silent. Before Sarah could respond, the apartment door clicked open. Maya stood in the doorway, her school backpack clutched to her chest, her eyes widening at the sight of Julian in her living room. You're here because of my new dream, she said, her voice a quiet, certain statement. Julian exchanged a startled glance with Sarah. What new dream, Maya? Maya dropped her backpack by the door and approached them slowly. I saw you. You were standing in a big white room with lots of computers and bright lights. You were holding something small and shiny, and there were people trying to take it from you. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Bad people, Mr. Croft, with guns. Sarah moved to her daughter's side, a protective arm wrapping around her shoulders. Maya, honey, Mr. Croft came to talk about a new school, not about your dreams. But Julian couldn't tear his gaze from Maya's intense, focused expression. When did you have this dream, Maya? Last night, and the night before, she answered. She hesitated for a fraction of a second. There was a name, too, something about Icarus. Julian felt his breath catch in his throat. Project Icarus. It was Arrowverse's most classified and revolutionary development, a quantum encryption key so powerful it could reshape the landscape of global security. Its existence was known to only 5 people on the entire planet, now 6, counting an 8-year-old girl who saw the future in her sleep. Maya? Julian said carefully, choosing his words with immense precision. Would you like to go to a special school? A place with other children who have unique gifts like you? Maya's eyes, which had been clouded with the weight of her vision, suddenly brightened. Then, just as quickly, they dimmed. Would Mama be able to come too? The school has apartments for its staff, Julian said, making the decision in that instant. Your mother could work there. She could be close to you. Doing what? Sarah asked, her skepticism returning. Whatever she chooses, Julian replied without hesitation. The school is always in need of dedicated, trustworthy staff. She could be a teaching assistant, work in administration, or supervise maintenance operations. Maya looked up at her mother, her face a canvas of pure, unadulterated hope. For the first time, Julian saw not the mysterious child with inexplicable powers, but simply a little girl desperate for her mother's approval. Sarah's stern expression finally softened as she smoothed down a few stray coils of Maya's hair. We can visit this school, she conceded. We can see if it feels like the right place for us. No promises. Maya's resulting smile was radiant enough to light up the entire room. But just as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished. She turned back to Julian, her expression once again grave and far beyond her years. Mr. Croft, in my dream, the shiny thing you were holding, it broke. And when it broke, everything went dark. Everything. A profound chill, colder than the Chicago wind outside, ran through Julian's body. Project Icarus wasn't just valuable in the wrong hands, or if it was destroyed, it could be catastrophic on a global scale. And somehow, impossibly, Maya Washington had seen it all. The Meridian Academy for Gifted Youth rose like a modern sanctuary amidst the steel and concrete canyons of downtown Chicago. It was a 6-story architectural marvel of shimmering glass and sustainable bamboo, its central courtyard shielded from the bustling city streets by lush, living walls of vertical greenery. As Julian escorted Sarah and Maya through the secure, biometric-scanned entrance, he felt the oppressive weight of Maya's latest prediction pressing down on him. The academy currently has 112 students, he explained, his voice echoing slightly in the light-drenched, soaring atrium. Children of various ages were scattered throughout the space, some working individually on holographic interfaces, others gathered in small animated discussion groups. The age range is from 5 to 18, with highly specialized curricula tailored to each student's particular gifts. Maya's eyes were wide with wonder, her head swiveling as she tried to take in every detail. What kind of gifts do they have? We have mathematical prodigies who can solve complex equations in their heads, linguistic savants who are fluent in a dozen languages, and children with extraordinary artistic or musical talents. Julian smiled down at her. But I have a feeling you will be our very first precognitive student. A tall, elegant woman with silver-streaked dark hair and a warm, intelligent face approached them, her hand extended. Mr. Croft, welcome back to Meridian. And this must be Maya and Ms. Washington. Dr. Anya Sharma. This is Sarah Washington and her daughter, Maya. Julian made the introductions. Dr. Sharma was the Academy's director, a brilliant educator whom Julian deeply respected. Dr. Sharma crouched down to Maya's level, her smile genuine. I've heard some truly remarkable things about you, Maya. We are all very excited to meet you. Maya studied the woman for a long, silent moment. Your necklace, she said finally. It has the same pattern as your father's ring. Dr. Sharma blinked in surprise, her hand instinctively going to the intricate Celtic knotwork on the silver pendant she wore. Yes, it does. How could you possibly know that? I can see it, Maya explained simply, like a memory, but it's on the outside instead of the inside. Dr. Sharma straightened up slowly, a look of profound curiosity on her face. Well, that's certainly a manifestation we haven't encountered before. She turned her attention to Sarah. Ms. Washington, while my assistant gives Maya a tour of the student facilities, Perhaps you and I could discuss the staff accommodations. We have a lovely two-bedroom apartment available that I think you'll find quite comfortable." As they moved through the Academy's state-of-the-art facilities, Maya became increasingly animated. She asked thoughtful, incisive questions about the classes, the other students, and the advanced technology that was seamlessly integrated into every aspect of the building. For the first time since Julian had met her, she seemed completely present in the moment, unburdened by the heavy visions of what might come. She looked simply like a curious child in a place that finally made sense to her. The tour concluded in Dr. Sharma's spacious office, which overlooked the Academy's rooftop garden. Refreshments had been laid out for them. As Maya happily sipped a steaming mug of hot chocolate, Dr. Sharma addressed Sarah directly. "I understand your concerns about Maya's gift being misunderstood or exploited, Ms. Washington," she began, her tone both professional and deeply reassuring. "Let me assure you, Meridian functions as a sanctuary. Our primary mission is to nurture the unique abilities of these extraordinary children while ensuring their emotional and psychological well-being, above all else." "And what about her visions?" Sarah asked cautiously, the question that was clearly at the forefront of her mind. "The bad ones. How would you handle those?" "With respect, empathy, and meticulous documentation," Dr. Sharma replied without hesitation. "We would never attempt to induce or force precognitive episodes, but when they occur naturally, our staff is trained to help Maya process them in a safe and supportive environment." She leaned forward, her gaze earnest. "Children with exceptional gifts often feel profoundly isolated, different from their peers. Here at Meridian, being different is the norm. Maya would be surrounded by other children who understand what it means to perceive the world in unique and powerful ways." Julian watched as Sarah's carefully constructed walls of resistance visibly began to crumble. The apartment she'd been shown was spacious and modern, a world away from their current cramped living situation. The job opportunity was genuine and respectful. The educational environment was unparalleled. But most importantly, Maya was already forming a clear and powerful attachment to the place. "We could start next semester," Sarah said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "That would give us time to prepare, to say our goodbyes to our old life." Dr. Sharma nodded in understanding. "Of course, we will hold the position and the apartment for you." Maya, who had been uncharacteristically quiet for the past few minutes, suddenly set her mug down with a soft clink. "It has to be sooner." 3 pairs of adult eyes turned to her. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Sarah asked gently. "We need to be here sooner," Maya insisted, her small face solemn. "Before the bad thing happens, Mr. Croft's shiny thing. It's going to break soon. I can feel it getting closer." Dr. Sharma gave Julian a questioning look, but he maintained a neutral expression. Project Icarus was far too classified to discuss, even with the trusted director of the Academy. "Maya," Julian asked carefully, "did you see when this bad thing might happen?" Maya screwed up her face in concentration. There were orange and yellow leaves falling, and it was raining." She closed her eyes tightly. "And people were talking about their Halloween costumes." Julian felt his chest tighten. Today was October 7th. Halloween was just over 3 weeks away. "I believe we could expedite the admissions process," Dr. Sharma said immediately, sensing the urgency in Julian's demeanor. "Perhaps you could start as early as next week, if that would work for you, Ms. Washington." Sarah hesitated, her gaze shifting between her daughter's determined face and Julian's barely concealed alarm. "I would need to give notice at my jobs, pack up our things." "I can arrange for professional movers," Julian offered instantly, "and I will personally compensate your current employers for the short notice." A heavy silence settled over the office. Finally, with a deep, resigned sigh, Sarah nodded. "Maya's education and her safety come first. If this is what she needs, then we'll make it work." As they prepared to leave the academy, Julian's phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Kenji Tanaka. Facial recognition just pinged Victor Stone at Vancouver International Airport. Canadian authorities are in pursuit. Julian slipped the phone back into his pocket, his mind racing. If Victor was in Canada, where was Claire? And more importantly, who else was involved in this conspiracy to steal Project Icarus? In the elevator descending to the lobby, Maya tugged on the sleeve of his jacket. "Mr. Croft?" "Yes, Maya?" "In my dream, when everything went dark," she lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper, "I saw the lady with the yellow hair again, and she was still laughing." Julian felt a sliver of ice slide down his spine. Claire was still out there, still plotting her next move, and somehow the fate of Project Icarus, perhaps the most significant technological advancement of the decade, was inextricably entangled with the mysterious, terrifying abilities of a cleaning woman's 8-year-old daughter. As the elevator doors opened, Maya looked up at him, her eyes holding a wisdom that seemed ancient. "Don't worry, Mr. Croft. I won't let the bad thing happen. That's why I'm here now.